Hey, welcome to On the Clock, a collaboration between the Packaday Podcast and the Draft Fellows. I'm Andrew Murtig. That is Kyle Fellows. Together we are the Draft Fellows, and leading up to the draft, we've been doing a series covering picks 1 through 32, each team's biggest needs and who they should be considering at their pick. You can check out the video of all previous 31 episodes on the Draft Fellows channel on YouTube and the audio versions on Packaday. Kyle, we have reached pick 32 and the Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia Eagles, at long last.
We are here. We have reached the end of the road, which means that we are on top of the actual drafts, which is super exciting. Feels like Christmas morning, but we got to talk about the Eagles before we can get there. And they've got a lot of needs. You would think like this is of course a Super Bowl winning team. It is a good roster, but anytime you go through a Super Bowl, you win that title, you kind of tend to lose some of that talent around the league as it kind of redistributes and other teams players pay your stars. So they've got some decisions to make here in the draft of how they're going to keep this team up at the top of the NFL. And so at wide receiver, of course, they have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, but Howie Roseman is always looking to add offensive talent and restock the cupboards there. So kind of maybe be a surprise to some folks, but they could definitely look to add a wide receiver. They could also look for an upgrade at the right guard spot if they chose to invest along the offensive line. At edge, Brandon Graham retired, and Josh Sweat is now a Cardinal. So they could definitely look to the edge position. And the Eagles moved on from Darius Slay, releasing him this offseason. So someone to add to that cornerback competition with a young group of Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. They're obviously really excited about those guys, but somebody else to mix into that room is something that they could definitely consider there, even as early as the first round.
Yeah, and if they were thinking about wide receiver at 32, I mean, you never know if a player like Tetairoa McMillan or Matthew Golden would fall. We kind of doubt that, but you're probably more in play for a player like Emeka Ibuka. I don't think the Eagles would invest a first round pick in wide receiver. I think that's more of like a, third, fourth, fifth round kind of quote unquote need to add behind, Brown and Devonta Smith, maybe giving some competition, Jahan Dotson at that wide receiver 3. If you're looking interior offensive line, there's a player like Tyler Booker, who I think is an ideal fit for Philadelphia. However, we have mentioned Tyler Booker in the previous like 5-6 shows. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of landmines there unless the Eagles were looking to move up. You could look at a player like Calvin Banks out of Texas as a potential solution there if they want to go edge. And we know Philadelphia loves drafting edge rushers high. Marshall's Mike Green, Tennessee's James Pierce Jr., Donovan Ezraku out of Boston College, Nick Scorton, Texas A&M. A lot of options at edge here. They could even look at defensive line. I know that is a massive strength of this team, but of course, there's going to be some players that fit in well there. If they wanted to go corner, again, I mean, you'd be adding to your first and second round picks, who were both highly successful last season. But players like Trey Amos, Azareye'h Thomas, Maxwell Harrison, Darian Porter Jr., Siobhan Rebel, those are all players that could be available here that would be really good values. Whether or not the Eagles see that as a massive need, we don't know, but getting another outside corner so that Cooper DeJean can really focus on playing in the slot role, I think would also be really helpful for this organization. So those are the needs, and then some of the players that fit in with those needs. So who do you think the Eagles should be targeting at the end of the first round?
Yeah, an interesting need that we didn't talk about is tight end. And Dallas Goddard has some durability issues, and he is a free agent next year in 2026. But at this point, like Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland are all but certain to be gone before 32. So the first round doesn't necessarily feel like a place where they're going to prioritize that. But I would think that at some point in the draft, we'll see the Eagles add to the tight end position for the future. But here at 32, I think edge makes a lot of sense. We talked about it. Predictively, it's just hard to say which one, right? Like there's a lot of these edges that are going to go in the first round, but I like the fit with edge for Philly. Maybe James Pierce falls this far and Howie scoops him up, that super productive edge rusher from Tennessee. I could also see the Eagles go for a player like ECU cornerback Savon Revel, who probably goes higher than this if it wasn't for the injury that he had in 2024. And that would be a very Eagles thing to do, to take a really, really talented player and just drop him into this very good roster.
Yeah, and since you mentioned tight end, I know we're focusing on the first round, but somebody that I think is a really interesting fit is Bowling Green's Harold Fannin Jr. Certainly not a first round player, but maybe he slides into the third round or so. And it just harkened me back to the Zach Ertz days, and
Yeah.
and Zach Ertz, still around the league, obviously, still
Yeah.
wildly productive, but he's just a player that gets open. And Harold Fannin Jr., you look at his testing, and you're like, well, this is not an elite athlete. But then you turn on the tape, and yes, it's Bowling Green, but even when they were playing major programs, like he's just always open, and I don't understand how. Like he's not like a super great linear athlete, but he knows how to find holes in zone, which is the most valuable asset in my opinion for tight ends in the NFL. He knows how to, he's a great catcher of the ball, and he knows how to get yards after the catch. So I think that would be a really interesting fit, and just didn't want the show to end without me shouting that out. But for me, Donovan Ezaraku seems like a perfect replacement for Brandon Graham. Similar builds. I think addressing edge is going to be the biggest needs for the Eagles as they try to repeat as Super Bowl champions. And you mentioned the talent going out the door, so replacing that's going to be really important. And of course, I mentioned this already, but Tyler Booker is a perfect fit to get that bulldozer on the offensive line. I think that would continue to be just unfair, and the Eagles would always get 4th and 1 still. I'm just not sure he makes it to 32, but if he does, watch out, league. The Eagles don't need any more dominant run blocking offensive linemen. But a lot of really interesting fits. And, we say they might not make it that long, but at the end of the day, we don't know. And there's so many players we say, oh, they have to go in the first round. They have to go in the 20s. There's only so many spots. So some players are going to fall into this stratosphere as well.
Absolutely. Tyler Booker is going to go at 12 and just scramble us completely. We put him in at 27. He's gone to 28 to the Lions. We have him here. Like, it's going to be hilarious when he goes like at 12. But the Eagles are another fun team to just see what they do when they are on the clock, because there's so many different ways that they go. I think this is a team that everybody expects to compete again, but they're going to have to continue to add talent through the draft for that to be a reality. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to the show and stick with us as we preview all 32 teams in this series. If you missed any, we've done all 32. Go back, find them on our YouTube channel, listen to them on the Pack a Day podcast, and make sure you are ready for now that the NFL draft is here. Make sure you know exactly what these teams are going to do when they're on the clock. But from the draft room to the gridiron, the Draft Fellas have got you covered. Until next time, stay tuned and stay in the game.